Yonaguni, one of the greatest archaeological mysteries under the sea, is waiting to be solved. Located off the southern coast of Japan, the giant rocks with straight cuts and square shapes pose a difficult question for researchers. Is this a man-made structure? An ancient submerged city, possibly dating back more than 10,000 years? Or is it just a product of rare natural erosion? At 2D Mystery, we will analyze data, listen to experts' hypotheses, and explore hidden corners that science cannot explain. The truth always lies below the surface, sometimes tens of meters of seawater. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like to support, share for your friends to explore, and subscribe to 2D Mystery channel so you don't miss any mysteries that are about to be revealed. A fateful encounter underwater, a dive like any other. March 1986, Yonaguni, a remote island located at the westernmost tip of the Japanese archipelago, where the sky and the ocean meet in an endless blue. The sea is calm, not a ripple. The gentle breeze blowing across the water seems to whisper ancient secrets that have been buried for millennia. Kahachiro Aratake, a veteran diver and marine tour guide, prepares for a simple survey under the waters of Yonaguni. He is not looking for treasure, nor is he hunting for mythical creatures. His purpose is simply to assess where tourists can come to dive with hammerhead sharks, an endemic species that only appears during the migration season. Little did he know, however, that this dive would change his life forever, and perhaps the history of mankind. A submerged world appeared, at a depth of about 25 meters. Among random rocks and common sea terrain, he suddenly saw a straight line, then a step, then a flat stone slab like a floor. All of it seemed too perfect to be natural. His heart was pounding. He turned on his flashlight. What appeared in the dim yellow light was a massive architectural structure, assembled from square stones with almost absolute 90-degree angles. What he saw was not just stones, it was a structure. The deeper he went, the more steps, corridors, grooves, stone platforms, and even what looked like a door. This was not natural. It could not be natural. The first question that popped into his mind: why has no one discovered this before? And then came the chilling feeling. What am I facing? The truth hidden under the water? Aratake did not keep a secret. When he returned to land, he reported his discovery to scientists and local authorities. But the first reaction was doubt. Those who had not seen it with their own eyes thought he was exaggerating. They called it a random arrangement of nature. However, some experts, including Professor Masaaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus, began to feel that the incident needed to be seriously investigated. Kimura dived to Yonaguni in 1992 and was shocked. What he saw was even more magnificent than the stories. An Atlantis of the East? A stone structure larger than a football field, with architectural details such as the sunken pyramid with its stepped levels. This stone gate looked like a ceremonial entrance. The long corridor is carved into a flat, straight shape, and large stone slabs resembling altars, which many believe were ancient ritual sites. Could this be the remains of a previously unknown prehistoric civilization? A city swallowed by the ocean thousands of years ago? In the middle of the sea, history comes alive. While most scientists maintain that it is a natural geological phenomenon, another line of thought is beginning to form. What if a civilization really existed here? What if its collapse occurred at the end of the Ice Age, when sea levels were rising? And if so, then the history of humanity may have to be completely rewritten. An unsolved mystery begins. Aratake's discovery opened up more than just a strange archaeological site. It opened up a maze of hypotheses, controversies, and global obsessions. Scientists, researchers, mystics, even those who believe in ancient aliens, all began to flock to Yonaguni, bringing questions and leaving with more questions. End of Chapter 1. The question still echoes. Yonaguni, is it just a natural rock formation under the sea? Or is it the remnant of a civilization that was swallowed by the sea and deliberately forgotten by human history? The adventure has begun, and the mystery still lies under the deep blue water, waiting to be revealed. The rocks can't be random. The evidence sunk deep into the ocean. After Kahachiro Aratake's fateful dive, rumors of an underwater pyramid in Yonaguni spread rapidly. But it wasn't until Professor Masaaki Kimura, a leading geologist at the University of the Ryukyus, got involved in the research that things really took a turn. Kimura didn't just dive to Yonaguni. He returned hundreds of times over the course of 15 years, bringing with him research teams, underwater filming robots, geoscientists, and 3D digital models. He was determined to prove one thing. What lies at the bottom of the sea couldn't just be rocks. Architecture in the ocean. In the geodetic maps published by Kimura, Yonaguni under the sea appears as a massive complex of structures with strange features. A giant staircase structure up to 150 meters long, nearly 25 meters high, with high stone steps in a row like a submerged pyramid. The vertical stone walls, with almost perfect right angles, look like ramparts, circular grooves and grooves, as if they were used to carry water or serve ritual purposes. A giant flat stone with the shape of an ancient altar. Long rectangular blocks, layered like fences, an underwater boulevard leading from one area to another. Perfect cuts. Can nature create them? The biggest question that scientists debate. Can nature create structures so precise? Some geologists argue that the area lies on a tectonic plate that is frequently subject to earthquakes, so the rocks may have cracked and split into blocks that appear artificial. However, Kimura counters with direct observations. Many of the square blocks show signs of being cut or chiseled vertically, rather than broken randomly. Some of the steps are uniform in height down to the centimeter. In particular, there are small L-shaped grooves resembling tool marks. He asks, if this is natural, why are the structures all oriented along the same axis? Why is there not a random distribution like normal faults? Strange carvings on the rocks. During a further survey in 1997, Kimura's team discovered something surprising. Engravings that looked like symbols or drawings on a large slab of rock deep underwater. Some of the markings appear to be hieroglyphs, never seen before in any Japanese writing system. Some have suggested that they resemble ancient Okinawan script or even the writing of an unknown civilization. There are also animal-like carvings, a creature with a lion's mane and a dragon's body, and a human figure standing with its arms outstretched between two circular lines. All suggest ritual or religious worship. Are these the remains of an ancient temple, a ceremonial center, or a sacred area associated with gods of a long-forgotten era? The lost civilization theory. Professor Kimura has come to believe that Yonaguni was part of an ancient continent that sank at the end of the Ice Age some 10,000 years ago. He calls it the Atlantis of the East, an ancient civilization that may have existed before Egypt, Babylon, or Sumer. This fits with a controversial theory that humans developed advanced civilizations before recorded history, but because of natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and melting ice, they disappeared without a trace, except for ruins like Yonaguni. Academic undercurrents. However, not everyone agrees. Many Western scholars, such as Professor Robert Schoch for Boston University, believe that the structures at Yonaguni could have been formed by natural processes, by sedimentary rock stratification and erosion. They argue that attributing a human hand to nature is lacking evidence and sentimental. However, Kimura and the Japanese researchers argue, for such perfect shapes to appear randomly and concentrated in a single area, the probability is extremely low. In fact, it is almost impossible. The line between reality and myth. Is nature teasing us? Or is history trying to tell us a hidden truth? Perhaps these structures are living testament to a chapter of history that has been erased from human memory. A chapter that modern people are not yet ready to accept. End of chapter 2, When Stones Speak. I don't hear voices from the bottom of the sea, Kimura once said, but I feel something as if the rocks are telling the story of a lost world. The secret of underground tunnels and doors. A maze under the sea? After dozens of surveys, Professor Masaaki Kimura and his team began to discover increasingly strange things. Narrow cracks at the bottom of the structure, which seemed to be simply erosion, led to voids inside the rock. Some of these passages were only 1 to 2 meters wide, but stretched for dozens of meters, connecting the main rock to the surrounding areas, forming a system that resembled tunnels. And that was just the beginning. Echoes inside the rock. During an expedition in 2001, Kimura's team used sonar equipment to examine the rock structure below. They noticed that some areas were hollow, not as solid as natural rock. When a small camera was dropped into one of the cracks, the image captured was breathtaking. A hollow square chamber, about 3 meters high, the stone walls smooth and almost cut. In the middle of the floor was a cylindrical stone block, exactly like a sacrificial pillar. There was also a narrow slit leading further inside, but it was too small for a diver to enter. The probe showed that the space beyond the slit was larger. They called it the Chamber of Silence, an underwater door. On the east side of the main structure, near the deepest part of the water, the team discovered an unusual shape. 2 vertical blocks of stone, each nearly 5 meters high, just a few dozen centimeters apart, and above them was a horizontal stone like an ancient gate. Professor Kimura gave it a haunting name, the Gate of the Forgotten Ones. The gate is observed to point directly out into the deep sea and is aligned with the rising sun on the spring equinox, a phenomenon that may suggest an astronomical ritual. Did someone, or something, pass through the gate each time an era began? Footsteps in the dark. Some sonar equipment recorded unusual pressure changes around the gate, as if there were water circulating from below or an unexplored cavity. In an unofficial report, a Taiwanese diver recounted a chilling experience. I was diving near the stone gate when I felt someone swimming right behind me. I turned around, nothing, but the water moved in an unusual way. It was like an invisible footstep passed right behind me. Okinawan mythology, the Dark Dwellers. When Kimura announced his discovery of the tunnels and underground chambers, many folklorists began to rediscover the ancient legends of Okinawa, not far from Yonaguni. One story in particular stood out, the legend of the Omobito, the people who lived in the sea. They're not like fish, not like people. They live in sunken cities where light cannot reach. When people on land dare to come, they leave behind only dreams, and their eyes open at night. The islanders once believed that the bottom of the sea was home to ancient spirits who built the world before humans. And that gate, it should not be open. A lost ritual? When symbologists observed the shape of the stone mold and the gate shaft, they noticed that the symmetrical arrangement was reminiscent of ancient mandalas, cosmic and ritual symbols in many ancient religions. In particular, they discovered a rectangular stone block placed off-axis, about 3 meters from the gate. On the surface, there was a depression that looked like a human footprint, as if someone had stood there, waiting. Some speculate that this was the site of a ritual to open the gate, perhaps for the dead, for the gods, or for time itself. Yonaguni, the tip of the iceberg? Professor Kimura believes that the tunnels and cavities under Yonaguni are just a tiny part of a much deeper complex. He once said, "We have only seen the top of the tower, not the body of this civilization." And he believes that, under another 10 to 20 meters of sediment, there may be burial chambers, storage vaults, or even a stone library, recording the history of a lost world. Warnings from the ocean. Although no one has ventured further into the crevices, the general feeling among divers is that they do not want to be disturbed. Some have reported hearing whispers in the bubbles. Others have seen their flashlights suddenly go out as they approach a deep crevice. Is it a mechanical malfunction, or is something protecting this secret? End of Chapter 3, The Footsteps of the Dead. Don't think we are exploring Yonaguni. A young researcher once said, maybe Yonaguni itself is watching us. And those passages could be traces of someone who went before or someone who never left. The ghost of a forgotten civilization. Yonaguni, a crack in human memory? As images of the Yonaguni rock formation spread around the world, a question immediately arose. Who built Yonaguni? However, that question may be wrong in its very nature. For if the Yonaguni structures are not the work of the current civilization, then how many civilizations existed before us? And Yonaguni, could it be the remnants of a completely different history, buried by time and ocean? The legend of Mu, the land that disappeared into the sea. One of the most mysterious theories surrounding Yonaguni is its connection to the continent of Mu, a legendary civilization that is said to have existed in the Pacific Ocean tens of thousands of years ago, then sunk to the bottom of the ocean in an unprecedented disaster. Mystics such as James Churchward have described Mu as a vast continent where the first humans were born, using sophisticated technology and living in harmony with the laws of the universe. And according to some ancient maps, the western edge of Mu, the Okinawa region, and the Ryukyu Islands, where Yonaguni is located. Talking stones? On a large stone slab in Yonaguni, Kimura's research team once discovered faint engravings. Initially thought to be a natural scratch, the strange shape emerged after a series of oblique light techniques and digital analysis. A series of geometric, language-like symbols. Not Egyptian hieroglyphs, not Chinese characters, but some kind of pre-linguistic repeating sign. One prominent symbol is a symmetrical spiral, similar to those found in ancient sites in Peru and Malta. Is this the language of Mu, or some kind of ancient global sign system? One that existed before recorded history? Pre-flood civilizations? Ancient geologists point out that at the end of the last ice age, about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, global sea levels rose nearly 120 meters, submerging swaths of coastal land. Some researchers speculate that if civilization existed before this time, the ideal place for them to build their main cities would have been along the coast, areas that are now completely submerged. Yonaguni lies at a depth of 5 to 25 meters, just right for the area that was flooded after the Ice Age. This makes the hypothesis of a prehistoric civilization here no longer far-fetched. It could be the last hidden piece in the picture of human history. Unbelievable cuts. Whose technique? One of the details that makes scientists skeptical is the cuts on the main rock block of Yonaguni are as straight as a knife, an almost perfect 90-degree angle. In nature, erosion and earthquakes rarely create such straight lines and regular steps. Professor Kimura has identified more than 15 evidences of human hand, including staircases with uniformly sized steps as if cast in stone, perpendicular pillars broken in the middle, as if they once supported a stone roof, parallel grooves running along the main axis. If humans did create these details, what tools did they use? Metal had not yet been invented at the time, yet the cuts were neater than modern cutting machines. Maps that should not exist. In 2005, a Portuguese antique map collector accidentally discovered in the Royal Library of Lisbon a faded copy of the 15th century Cantino map, which marked a strange area. An island of sunken stone cities, marked Cidade das Vozes Antigas, City of Ancient Voices. The coordinates on a map match Yonaguni almost perfectly. But why would a map from the 15th century, before Europeans set foot in Asia, record this detail? Who told them? Who remembered what had been forgotten? Yonaguni, fragments of another world? Independent archaeologists such as Graham Hancock believe that Yonaguni is the first evidence of a series of underground cities around the world, from the sunken pyramids in Cuba to the underground structures in the Gulf of Cambay, India. All share the same characteristics. Located at unusual depths, have unnatural petrological structures, associated with legends of sunken civilizations. If true, then perhaps humanity did not just begin 10,000 years ago, but has risen and fallen many times in a hidden cycle. End of Chapter 4. Whispers from Lost Eras. Imagine a civilization that was once flourishing, but then the Great Flood came. Everything was swallowed up. All that was left was rock, lying at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for someone to remember. And if Yonaguni is a reminder, then we're living in a moment when the past wants to be heard. Unexplained clues, stones, and darkness. Something was wrong. When diver Masaaki Kimura first explored Yonaguni in the 1990s, he had no idea that in addition to the massive terrace structures, there were also strange artifacts scattered around the area. They were not fossils, nor were they ordinary volcanic rocks, but rather purposefully shaped blocks of material, some half buried in the seabed sand, as if someone had tried to hide them. The ancient rock, artifact, or illusion. One of the most mysterious artifacts the team discovered was a perfectly polished, circular rock, nearly a meter in diameter, with a circular hole in the center, exactly like a watching eye. The rock was isolated, facing east, where the sun rose. Professor Kimura believes it could be part of an ancient astronomical device, or even a theological symbol, the Eye of Heaven, that appeared in the Egyptian and Sumerian civilizations. But who made it? And why is it lying there, in the middle of the dark sea? Rocks that don't belong here. An independent team of geologists from India, after analyzing rock samples taken from Yonaguni, made a shocking finding. There are at least 3 rocks whose mineral composition does not match any known natural quarries on Yonaguni Island or in the surrounding areas of Japan. In other words, they don't belong here. So how, in an age without iron boats or lifting equipment, could ancient people transport hundreds of tons of rocks from elsewhere to the current seabed? Is this a trace of a lost technology or some power beyond our understanding? The so-called stone door. In a deep corner west of the main structure, the divers discovered a nearly complete arch connecting 2 large rocks, forming a triangular door. It was about 2.5 meters high and exactly 1.6 meters wide, the perfect proportions for an adult to pass through. But what made the researchers shiver was the inside of the door was polished smooth like a mirror. Outside the door, there were signs that it had been blocked by a fallen boulder. It was as if this place had been intentionally sealed and was now slowly revealing a secret not meant for the outside world. The rocks emitted low-pitched sound waves. In 2012, a team of acoustic engineers brought sonar equipment to Yonaguni to survey. The surprising results. Some of the rocks, especially the central one, which resembles a flat pyramid, emit infrasound waves at a frequency of 8 to 13 hertz, even when there is no obvious tidal movement. This frequency is close to the threshold that affects human brain activity, causing a feeling of confusion, anxiety, or spiritual